There comes a moment in each of our lives when we find ourselves at a crossroads wondering where to go, questioning whether the path we're on is still the right one. And in that moment, it's easy to feel stuck, uncertain, and even fearful. But let me remind you today, God knows exactly where you are. He knows when you've outgrown your current situation, and He knows when you need a new path. There are moments in life when uncertainty seems to surround us, and we feel lost, unsure of where to go or what to do next. These moments of confusion can be overwhelming, leaving us questioning whether we are on the right path. It's in these times of uncertainty that we must remember something vital. God is fully aware of what you are going through. He knows the struggles you face, the confusion that clouds your mind, and the decisions that weigh heavy on your heart. Often when life feels most uncertain, it's not because you've done something wrong or taken a wrong turn. Rather, it's because God is shifting things in your life. He is rearranging circumstances, preparing you for a new direction that you may not yet be able to see. When everything seems unclear, God is not absent. He is actively guiding you, even when you can't feel it. His presence is constant, and His plans for you are already in motion. We tend to seek clarity and answers as quickly as possible, but God operates on a different timeline, one that is far beyond our understanding. He sees the bigger picture, the end from the beginning. What looks like confusion or a dead end to us is simply part of the process in God's grand design for our lives. Sometimes God allows uncertainty to create space for new opportunities, for growth, and for a deeper connection with Him. During these times, it's essential to lean into your relationship with God. It's easy to get lost in the noise of uncertainty, but God often uses this as a moment to get your attention. He whispers in the quietness of your heart, guiding you toward the right path. But to hear His voice, we need to tune out the distractions, the doubts, and the fears that can cloud our judgment. In moments of uncertainty, prayer becomes a lifeline. It's in those quiet moments of prayer that we can lay our worries at His feet and trust that He will provide the guidance we need. Through prayer, we align ourselves with His will, opening our hearts to receive His direction. And though the answers may not come immediately, they will come in His perfect timing. God is never late. He is always right on time, orchestrating things in a way that works for your good. Faith is critical here. Uncertainty can challenge our faith, but it is in these moments that faith becomes most necessary. Faith is trusting in God's plan even when we cannot see it. It's believing that, though the road ahead may be unclear, God has already mapped it out. And while we may only see a small step in front of us, God sees the entire journey. He knows the twists and turns, and He is with us every step of the way. God's guidance often comes in unexpected ways through a person, a conversation, a closed door, or even a sudden change in circumstances. These shifts may feel uncomfortable or unsettling, but they are often God's way of moving us in the direction we need to go. He uses every circumstance to guide us toward His perfect will for our lives, even when we don't realize it in the moment. So when uncertainty fills your life, remember that God is not distant. He is aware of every detail, and He is leading you through the confusion. You may not have all the answers, but you don't need to. You just need to trust that the One who knows all things is guiding you. Change is an inevitable part of life, and often it can be one of the most challenging things to embrace. We find comfort in the familiar, our routines, relationships, and the stability of knowing what's coming next. But there comes a time when God, in His infinite wisdom, stirs things up. He disrupts the status quo and nudges us in a new direction. While this may feel unsettling, it is crucial to understand that change is not something to fear. In fact, change is a vital part of God's plan for our lives. God never intends for us to remain stagnant. He is constantly working to shape us, to mold us, and to refine us so that we can fulfill the purpose He has placed within us. Change is one of the primary ways God brings about growth. Through change, He moves us from where we are to where we need to be. He uses it to challenge us, to stretch our faith, and to help us discover the potential He has planted deep within us. Often we resist change because it takes us out of our comfort zone, but growth and comfort cannot coexist. To grow, we must be willing to embrace the unknown, to step into new territory, and to trust that God is leading us exactly where we need to go. Change is not a sign that something has gone wrong. Rather, it is a signal that God is doing something new in your life. God's plan for our lives is not static. It evolves as we grow, as we make decisions, and as we follow Him. And while His purpose for us remains the same, the way we get there often requires us to adapt, to shift, and to be open to new possibilities. Sometimes, the change we experience comes in the form of unexpected opportunities or blessings, but other times it may come through hardship, challenges, or even loss. Regardless of how it comes, change is always purposeful in God's hands. When God allows change in our lives, it is never random. Every change He orchestrates is designed to move us closer to His divine will. Sometimes that means closing certain doors so that new ones can open. It may mean taking us through seasons of uncertainty or discomfort so that we can learn to rely more fully on Him. Whatever the case, God is always working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities to bring about His perfect plan for us. One of the most powerful aspects of change in God's plan is that it often brings clarity. When things stay the same for too long, we can become complacent. We stop seeking God's guidance and lean on our own understanding. But when change comes, it forces us to look to Him for direction. It reminds us that we are not in control and that we need to trust His leadership. Change also reveals our inner strength. Often we don't realize what we're capable of until we are placed in situations that challenge us. God uses change to reveal the resilience, faith, and perseverance He has built within us. It's through change that we learn to let go of our old ways of thinking and embrace new perspectives. We learn to see obstacles as opportunities for growth and to trust that every twist and turn is leading us closer to our destiny. God uses change to align us with His greater purpose. He knows the plans He has for us, and those plans are for our good. Though we may not understand why things are shifting in our lives, we can trust that God's hand is guiding every change, every transition, and every new beginning. Trusting God's timing can be one of the most challenging aspects of faith, especially in a world that values instant gratification and quick results. We often find ourselves waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for an answer to prayer, or waiting for a change in our circumstances. In these moments of waiting, it's easy to become impatient, frustrated, and even discouraged. But God's timing is not like ours. His perspective is eternal, and He sees the end from the beginning. When we learn to trust His timing, we begin to understand that delays are not denials, and that waiting is often a part of His greater plan. God works in seasons, and just as there is a time for everything under the sun, there is a time for every purpose under heaven. Sometimes God has to prepare us for what He has prepared for us. We might feel ready for a new opportunity, a promotion, or a significant life change, but God knows the condition of our hearts, our readiness, and the development we still need. Trusting His timing means understanding that He is working on us just as much as He is working on the situation. There may be lessons we need to learn, character traits we need to refine, or spiritual maturity we need to attain before we can step into what He has planned for us. Impatience can lead us down the wrong path. When we try to rush God's process or take matters into our own hands, we often end up making choices that take us further away from His purpose. Think about the story of Abraham and Sarah. God had promised them a child, but when they became impatient with waiting for His timing, they tried to take control of the situation by having a child through Hagar. That decision brought more challenges and heartache into their lives. God's promise was still true, but their impatience led to unnecessary complications. Trusting God's timing means surrendering our desire for control and believing that He knows the right time for everything. God's timing is perfect. It may not align with our expectations or our schedule, but it is always on time. He is never late, even when it feels like we've been waiting forever. The Bible reminds us in Isaiah 40:31 that those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. Waiting on God does not mean being idle. It means actively trusting Him, drawing closer to Him, and preparing for what He is going to do. In the waiting, God often deepens our relationship with Him. When we stop focusing on the clock and start focusing on Him, we find peace. We learn to rely on His presence and His promises rather than the circumstances around us. And when the time finally comes for His plan to unfold, we are more than ready. Trusting God's timing transforms waiting from a frustrating delay into a period of preparation and growth. God never forgets His promises. What He has spoken over your life will come to pass, but in His time, not ours. When we trust His timing, we acknowledge that His ways are higher than our ways, and that His plan is far greater than anything we could imagine. Letting go of the old is often one of the hardest things to do, but it's essential if we want to step into the new that God has for us. Many times we hold on to past experiences, relationships, habits, or even mindsets because they feel familiar and comfortable. Yet, as comforting as the familiar may seem, it can also be the very thing that holds us back from receiving the fullness of what God has planned for our lives. God is always moving forward, always progressing toward His purpose for us. He is a God of new beginnings, fresh starts, and open doors. But in order to walk through the new doors He is opening, we have to be willing to close some old ones. There are things in our lives that may have served a purpose in the past, but they no longer align with where God is leading us. Holding on to the old often keeps us stuck, preventing us from growing and advancing into the next season of our lives. Letting go requires faith. It means trusting that God has something better in store, even if we can't see it yet. It's natural to want to hold on to what we know, especially when the future seems uncertain. But faith is about believing in what we cannot yet see and trusting that God's plan is far greater than anything we've experienced so far. The Bible reminds us that God's ways are higher than our ways and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So when He asks us to let go of something, it's because He has something better waiting for us on the other side. Sometimes the things we need to let go of are not just physical possessions or relationships, but old mindsets and ways of thinking. We might have developed certain beliefs about ourselves, about others, or about life that no longer serve us. These mindsets might have been shaped by past experiences, disappointments, or even fears. But if we continue to carry these old ways of thinking, they will prevent us from fully embracing the new opportunities and blessings that God has prepared for us. Letting go is also about making room for the new. God cannot pour new blessings into a heart that is still full of old baggage. Just as you cannot fill a cup that is already full, God cannot give you something new if your hands are still tightly gripping the past. We must release what no longer serves us so that we can receive what God is offering. This requires not just letting go physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. It's about releasing the hurts, disappointments, and regrets of the past so that we can step forward in freedom. There's a divine exchange that happens when we let go of the old. As we release the things that no longer align with God's purpose, we make space for new growth, new relationships, and new opportunities. What God has prepared for you in the future is far greater than anything you've left behind. But the key to receiving the new is in letting go of the old with faith, trust, and expectation for what is to come. Faith plays a foundational role in walking a new path, especially when that path is uncertain or unfamiliar. When God calls us to step into something new, He rarely shows us the entire plan. He often gives us just enough light to take the next step, leaving the rest of the journey in the shadows. This can be unsettling, as our natural inclination is to want clarity, certainty, and a well-defined roadmap. But that's where faith comes in. Faith is the trust that we place in God, believing that He is guiding us even when we cannot see the whole picture. Faith is not just a belief in God, it is an active trust that He knows what is best for us, and that His plans are good. Walking a new path often requires leaving behind what is familiar and stepping into the unknown. It requires us to surrender our desire for control and to rely fully on God's guidance. This act of surrender is not passive, It is a daily decision to trust in God's wisdom and timing, even when things don't make sense from our limited perspective. When we walk in faith, we acknowledge that our journey is not dependent on our own abilities or understanding, but on God's strength and direction. The Bible tells us that we walk by faith, not by sight. This means that we don't rely on what we see or what we can comprehend with our minds. Instead, we trust in God's unseen hand, knowing that He is leading us along the right path. Walking by faith requires courage, because it often means stepping into situations where the outcome is uncertain. But faith reminds us that God is already in our future, working everything out for our good. Faith also empowers us to overcome fear. One of the biggest obstacles to walking a new path is the fear of the unknown. Fear can paralyze us, keeping us stuck in old ways or preventing us from moving forward. But faith gives us the strength to face our fears, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. When we walk in faith, we are reminded that we are never alone. God promises to never leave us nor forsake us, and His presence goes before us, preparing the way. Faith is not just about believing that God can do something, it's about trusting that He will. It's about holding on to His promises, even when our circumstances seem to contradict them. There will be times on the new path when challenges arise, and we may question whether we've made the right decision or whether we're truly following God's will. In those moments, faith anchors us, reminding us that God's promises are true and that His plans are always for our good. Walking a new path by faith also requires patience. God's timing is often different from ours, and we may find ourselves waiting for the next step or for clarity on what comes next. Faith teaches us to trust in God's timing, knowing that He is never late. While we may feel anxious or eager to see progress, faith reminds us that God's timing is perfect and that He is working all things together for our benefit, even in the waiting. Faith transforms our perspective as we walk a new path. It shifts our focus from the uncertainties of the journey to the certainty of God's character. Faith allows us to walk confidently, not because we have all the answers, but because we trust the one who does. As we continue to walk in faith, step by step, God reveals His plan in ways that exceed our expectations, leading us to a future that is far greater than anything we could have imagined on our own. When we think about the plans that God has for us, we often focus on the destination, on the blessings, opportunities, and successes that lie ahead. But what we sometimes overlook is the process that leads to that destination. God, in His wisdom, not only prepares blessings for us, but He also prepares us for those blessings. This preparation is vital because the things He has in store for us require a level of maturity, strength, and wisdom that we might not yet possess. So before we can step into the fullness of what He has prepared, we must go through a season of preparation. Preparation is not always easy, nor is it always comfortable. It often involves challenges, delays, and times of waiting. But every experience, whether positive or negative, is part of God's training ground for the future. He uses life's ups and downs to shape us, to build our character, and to equip us with the skills and qualities we'll need for the next level of our lives. These moments are not wasted. They are part of a divine process that ensures we are ready when the time comes to step into the purpose He has set before us. One of the most significant ways God prepares us is through adversity. While we often pray for a smooth journey, it's the trials and tribulations we face that refine us. Like gold being purified in the fire, we are tested and shaped through difficult experiences. These moments reveal our weaknesses, challenge our faith, and push us to grow in ways we might not have otherwise. In these seasons, we learn to trust God more deeply, lean on Him more fully, and discover strength we didn't know we had. It's in the valley that God prepares us for the mountain. God also prepares us through waiting. We live in a world that values instant results, but God's timing is often different from ours. He doesn't rush the process because He knows that growth takes time. Waiting teaches us patience, perseverance, and reliance on God's timing. It's during the waiting that God works behind the scenes, orchestrating circumstances and preparing the way for us to step into what He has prepared. While we may not understand the delay, God is using that time to mature us, to deepen our relationship with Him, and to ensure that we are ready when the time comes. Sometimes, preparation means learning to let go of certain things. There may be habits, relationships, or mindsets that served us in one season but will not be beneficial in the next. God often calls us to release these things so that we can receive what He has for us in the future. This process of pruning, though painful at times, is necessary for growth. Just as a gardener prunes a tree so that it can bear more fruit, God prunes areas of our lives that need refining in order to make space for greater things. Another critical part of God's preparation is teaching us to trust Him fully. As He leads us through various experiences, He is building our faith. He is teaching us that no matter what lies ahead, He is with us, guiding and providing for us. This trust is essential because when we step into what He has prepared, there will still be challenges. But by that time, we will have learned to rely on God's strength rather than our own. We will have the confidence to face whatever comes our way because we know that the same God who prepared us for this moment will see us through it. God's preparation is a process, but it is one that is perfectly tailored to each of us. He knows exactly what we need to grow, to develop, and to be ready for the future He has designed for us. So while the journey may be tough at times, we can rest in the assurance that every step is part of God's loving preparation for the amazing things He has in store. In conclusion, God's preparation is an essential and intentional part of His plan for our lives. Every trial, waiting period, and challenge we face is designed to shape us, refine us, and equip us for the future He has prepared. Though the process may be uncomfortable or difficult, it is through these experiences that we grow in faith, maturity, and trust in Him. By embracing His preparation, we position ourselves to fully receive the blessings, opportunities, and purpose He has designed for us. Trust that God is always at work, preparing you for what He has prepared for you, and know that His timing and plan are perfect.